Hi, I'm Vanessa and I love bad Star Trek. I will be the tiny purple brain parasite that is season 1 of Star Trek's Next Generation. Today, I will be talking to you about an episode called Conspiracy. Prior episodes in season 1 have pulled inspiration from various movies. The Big Goodbye was inspired by the Maltese Falcon, and as M.A. Moreno so astutely pointed out, the episode We'll Always Have Paris was inspired by Casablanca, but Conspiracy seems to be pulling inspiration from a more contemporary for the time source, which were David Cronenberg's movies, such as The Fly, Scanners, and Videodrome. Cronenberg was a pioneer in what was termed the body horror genre, which all demonstrate a visceral transformation of the human body from one state to another in ways thought of as so graphic that his movies were consequently very polarizing and controversial. For example, in The Fly, Jeff Goldblum plays a guy who, in Trek terms, has a transporter accident in which a fly and his genetics become intertwined. The changes are subtle at first, but then his teeth fall out and he has a whole medicine cabinet full of his little body parts after they become vestigial one after the other. Towards the end, Jeff Goldblum even throws up onto his food to eat it as a fly does. I admit, I'm a fan. I personally have a picture of Jeff Goldblum in The Fly next to my bathroom mirror to inspire me to transform into this every day. When I think of gore and gross out film, I think of Cronenberg. What I don't think about is Star Trek. And that's part of why this is so jarring. In fact, this episode has the dubious distinction of being so gory and graphic that it was censored for British television, particularly because of the last scene, which I'll get into. This episode is honestly one of the more entertaining of the season, but not because it's good. It subverts expectations of a Trek episode because of how gross it is, while the plot is hilariously incoherent. Conspiracy joins the ranks of a rare breed of Trek episode, one that is so bad that it comes out on the other side as enjoyable. I hope it becomes like a mystery science theater episode at one point, so long as you keep in mind that this episode is not good. It can be worth watching. Like most episodes in season 1, the second you apply any critical thought to the plot, forget it. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. And not in a mind-melting Zen koan or mental puzzle kind of way. Conspiracy doesn't ask what one-hand clapping sounds like, or what it sounds like if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it. Or will a dried up piece of bow tie pasta cut your toe unless you sweep it off the floor? Or why isn't farts from lactose intolerance called dairy air? Many questions that will never be answered. No one can know. Conspiracy instead tries to be a psychological thriller, a genre that relies very heavily on the suspension of disbelief. But that foundation is never constructed. The plot holes that this episode fall into are huge. So instead of scary, it's distractingly wacky. And what results is a magical combination of something attempting to be serious, but not accomplishing that at all because Chicago pothole-sized plot holes and a completely bonkers climax, which ends up making this unintentionally hilarious. So the episode starts during the night shift with the Enterprise on its way to Pacifica. And we get a single scene in this entire thing that works on its own, where Data tries to respond to a joke as a human being would.
Yes. Very humorous indeed. Hysterical, in fact.
And then it just goes completely off the rails, because right after that, in comes a transmission from what's called the Starfleet emergency frequency, meant for captains only. Since it's the night shift, Picard is in his room. So right away, you have to ask, why did it come through the bridge? It's even marked as code 47, so they know it's only for him. Why did the bridge need to know anything about this phone call? Couldn't the episode start with Picard just receiving the phone call in his room? See, kids today don't know what it's like for your parent to pick up the phone and they have caller ID on the one landline on the house, so they spend a good deal of time telling your friend that, oh, they can't come to the phone right now, they're struggling in the bathroom, because they think it's just so funny to embarrass the crap out of you. Anyway, Picard picks up the call, has to give a voice ID, so it's clear that it's a very highly classified thing that he's about to receive. And he finds out who is calling him is an old friend, Captain Walker, who said, well, not a whole lot. Really, he's all, I'm worried about Starfleet and I can't tell you why. So meet me at this place so we can talk in person and I can tell you there what I'm worried about.
I don't understand.
I can't explain it now. We need to talk face to face.
And Picard is like, what are you talking about? We're on a secured channel now. Can't you just tell me here? It's the middle of the night and you called me to tell me that you're worried?
You're using a code 47. I have to know what all this is about.
Not over subspace. No.
Oh, for God's sake, Walker. This is a secured channel.
No.
And Walker continues to say some vaguely ominous stuff.
You owe me, and you owe it to yourself to hear what I have to say. Something is beginning. Don't trust anyone. Remember that, Jean-Luc. Don't take anything for granted.
He's asking Picard to do something that makes no sense.
I want you to meet me on Ditalic's B.
When?
Immediately.
Because it puts him in a very weird position, and Picard is left with no choice but to go to the bridge and just demand that they change course without explaining himself or telling anyone anything. Riker was hired by Picard because Riker is very quick to challenge authority. So Picard's, do what I say with such a huge change in plans, delaying an arrival to a mission, it should have raised his hackles more than it does. Why doesn't Picard just take a shuttle and not tell it? Like, that would make much more sense if he wants to keep things quiet. It's just silly to me how fast and loose everybody plays with what they consider confidential. As soon as they get into orbit of the rendezvous planet, Picard announces that he's beaming down to this place alone, which again, just confuses everybody.
Relay those coordinates to the transporter room. I'm beaming down.
Alone, Captain?
Alone, number one.
This could be anything according to the bridge crew. Is he squeezing in a last-minute turtle wax to his head? Is this like a surprise party because the only way to get Picard to go to a strip club is to scare him in the middle of the night with a vague call of danger and telling him to rendezvous on some abandoned mining planet? But no, when Picard gets down there, he's confronted by his friend with some banking security questions while someone else points a phaser at him. So Picard is even more annoyed, which makes perfect sense because no one's explained anything to him yet.
Where did we first meet?
Tau Ceti 3. It's a bar. Quite an exotic one, as I remember. What do I win?
Do you recall the night you introduced Jack Crusher to Beverly?
Know full well that I hadn't met Beverly then. You introduced them.
My brother introduced them.
You don't have a brother. Two sisters, Anne and Melissa. What the hell is all this about?
So what's this big secret? Something's unusual within Starfleet Command. They've changed. They're giving weird orders like put the toilet seat down and take out the trash. I love how they also sort of tack on mysterious deaths, but then they bookend it with more vague, ominous nonsense.
High-ranking officials backing irrational proposals.
Starbase 12 was completely evacuated for 2 full days. No explanation given.
And what about the deaths?
Officers I've known for years are bluffing their way through talk of old times.
That's their weakness. A lack of memory.
Picard is a very rational guy, so he's very skeptical of this whole thing, and that's the most realistic thing about this episode. And these people delivering him the news need to give him more than Charlie Day talking about Pepe Sylvia.
Pepe Sylvia, this name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail, well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. It's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, man? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Sylvia.
They just leave him with, keep your eyes peeled. Okay, guys, all right. My eyes are bananas, whatever, I'm out of here. He asked Data to run a search on every single Starfleet command given in the last 6 months. It's a totally normal thing to ask a crew member to do, and no one at Starfleet Command will notice that he's a day late, at least, to a very important mission, and then randomly doing a deep meta search on Starfleet stuff. By this time, we're 15 minutes in. Nothing's happened. And then Worf goes, hey guys, there's a thingy in the distance. Could be belly buttonlet, could be an aglet, one of those plastic covers on the end of shoelaces. Could be Elvis. Let's go check it out.
Doesn't look natural. Agreed. Enlarge and identify.
It looks like debris from a space vessel of some kind.
And it turns out that it's a debris field from an exploded ship. Walker's ship. Holy bloomin' bunion at the outback, Batman. Something's afoot. So the pacing at this point is extremely lagging. They're just pointlessly hopping from one place to the next, finding out almost nothing until this point. But Data then reports in the next scene that there is in fact a pattern in the commands in the form of reshuffling personnel in key areas, giving the impression that there's a coordinated effort to control territory in the Federation in a very subtle and insular way. So we have a tiny, tiny seed of what could have been a great episode. Starfleet being infiltrated from the inside is an interesting idea, but it goes right into the toilet with what comes next when Picard takes the Enterprise and decides to go back to Starfleet Command on Earth. And when he gets the top command on the view screen and asks to beam down, the command panel then turns off the view screen to confer, turns it back on, and say something like, "We'd be delighted to have you for dinner." Yes.
Forgive the delay, Captain Picard. We'd be delighted if you and your first officer would join us for dinner.
Listen, whether it's a Tinder date, an interview, if anybody says, I'd be delighted, run. Run far, run fast. That's Bond villain talk. No one says, I'd be delighted. No one says that and means it nicely. Admiral Quinn asks to come on the ship while Picard's at Starfleet Command, and Admiral Quinn beams onto the Enterprise with a box that we see has a purple squirmy thing in it. So we kind of know at this point what's going on. There's an invasive species kind of thing, which I think is the least interesting direction to take. It can't be a temptation of corruption that rots Starfleet from the inside out. It's gotta be a bug. Anyway, to Picard, Quinn seems different, optimistic, upbeat. And since Picard knows Quinn as a miserable and cantankerous bastard, he's like, something's definitely going on. This is the point where he finally goes, yeah, there's something wrong here. Take him to sick bay. Stick a camera in something. Something's wrong with that guy.
Never felt better in my life. When you were here last, you were saying that you were feeling tired.
Tired of life I was, but not anymore.
It's not Gregory Quinn. It looked like him and sound like him, but it isn't him.
Are you absolutely certain, Captain?
I'm certain, number one.
And how wrong? When Riker asks what's in the box, Quinn responds with a superior life form. And Riker takes exception to that, so of course they have a fight.
I think I'll summon my science officer.
It won't like your science officer. It does like you.
Vitamins. They do wonders for the body.
The stunt people look nothing like anybody. I love when Riker gives Quinn a few roundhouses and Quinn's just like, ha 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 ha. It's so great. If this creature's so superior, what exactly is his plan other than running out of chewing gum and kicking some ass? He also throws Geordi right through a door and then threatens Worf.
Now, Klingon, it's between you and me.
If I was Worf, I'd be like, what's between you and me? Like, Riker, what are you talking about? Why are you fighting me? Beverly finally gets there and shoots down the man. Like, she shoots him over and over, which I thought was kind of hilarious. In sickbay, Beverly discovers this thingy on his neck, which is probably a 5G microchip transmitting his Spotify choices to the federal government. That's some scary shit. But not as scary as dinner, which the people down in Starfleet Command are real jazzed about having. But Picard's not, since he now knows that there's a brain worm that made Quinn attack Riker. This is the part that gets very Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. There's these covered dishes in front of everyone and they insist that Picard open his first. And of course it's mealworms. And of course it's disgusting. Riker then beams down and seemingly has been infected as well. Apparently, John Frakes, the actor who plays Riker, said that he did indeed get some mealworms in his mouth. God, what a trooper after this season. It was all for show though, because it turns out that Riker wasn't infected. He shoots everyone trying to rescue Picard. And this is where it gets really gross, because all the little bugs are like, oh my God, my host is shot. And they take refuge in this one guy. The claymation is just magnifique. And what follows is honestly one of the most bizarre and disgusting things I've ever seen on Trek. I can see why the censors cut this scene. They didn't have to go here. They didn't have to go this far. It's so over the top. It's not enough for this guy to be shot at until his entire upper body explodes. But then they shoot some disgusting animal thing inside of him, which also explodes. And they make sure to show this bug-filled smoking husk of a corpse at the end. And we find out that this guy had the mother inside of him, which killed all the other bugs everywhere else. And the bugs came because there was some homing signal or whatever. Trek over the years had, at this point, created a predictable formula. And I respect the fact that they were trying to bust that up in a positive way by instead focusing on an enemy from within the ranks. But when it turned out to be a bug, all they had to do was squash the bug. And all of the other glaring issues in this episode came into very sharp relief. In Deep Space Nine, we encounter founders whose goal is to dominate every corner of the galaxy, to eliminate every possible threat by infiltrating ranks undetected and weakening the Federation's defenses from within, knowingly creating paranoia and instability. It wasn't some bug you sprayed until it died. Also not the case with the Borg, who similarly justified conquest as a means for survival. These were enemies that used infiltration effectively. But a purple butthole in the neck, that's not scary. That's not threatening. That's just disgusting. There was no suspense leading up to that discovery either, just vague threats of changes and patterns. If you're up for a good time at Trek's expense, this episode's for you. Otherwise, it's completely skippable. Save for that guy's head exploding. That was pretty dope. I enjoyed that. Till next time, I guess.